Hello, English learners, and welcome to Film Stories in Simple English, where we retell the story of your favorite movies. In the spirit of Halloween, we're giving you the film stories of the famous Harry Potter series. Last week, we started off with Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So now, let's take a look at the second movie in the series, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. The movie takes place at the end of his first year at Hogwarts School, with Harry having a terrible summer in his upstairs room. We see Harry sitting at a desk looking at a picture of his parents and friends. Hedwig, his owl, is making noise because she can't get out of her cage. Harry reminds her that he can't use magic outside the school to free her. Harry's uncle, Vernon, calls Harry downstairs to talk about all that noise Hedwig is making. Harry asks his uncle to let Hedwig out for a while, but his uncle refuses, not wanting Harry to send messages to his friends. Then Harry says he hasn't gotten any letters from his friends all summer. Vernon says Harry has been moved from the cupboard under the stairs to Dudley's second bedroom out of the goodness of their hearts. He then asks Harry to stay quiet in his room upstairs while the family greets very important guests, the Mason. Now, we've got a bad feeling about this. Harry goes up to his room where he finds a house elf named Dobby bouncing on his bed. Dobby wants to tell him something, but he can't explain it. When Harry tells him to sit down, Dobby cries. He says no wizard has treated him like an equal. Harry tells him the wizards Dobby met are just bad. Dobby agrees, then he freaks out again and starts banging his head on Harry's dresser. Harry gets Dobby to stop, and the house elf explains that he punished himself because he almost said something bad about a wizard family he serves. Turns out Dobby serves one wizard family forever, and they don't know he's here talking to Harry Potter. But Dobby has to come and warn Harry he can't go back to Hogwarts. Something very bad is going to happen this year. Well, you watch the movies, something bad always happens every year at Hogwarts. It's not news, but Harry wants to go back to the school anyway. Dobby then starts hitting himself with a lamp again. Uncle Vernon comes upstairs because of all the noise, and Harry shoves Dobby into his closet just in time. After Vernon leaves, Dobby says that he stole all the letters that Harry's friend wrote him this summer. Thanks, Dobby. When Harry tries to get them back, Dobby runs downstairs to the kitchen. There, he spotted a cake Aunt Petunia made. Dobby tries to get Harry to promise he won't go back to Hogwarts, but Harry won't do it. So, Dobby snaps his fingers, levitates the cake, drops it right on Mrs. Mason's head. Of course, the Dursley thinks Harry did it. Looks like Vernon isn't going to do business with the Masons now. Afterwards, Uncle Vernon puts bars on Harry's windows. He's not letting Harry go back to Hogwarts. Seems weird because letting Harry leave for the next 9 months would really solve a lot of their problems. One night, Harry wakes up to a weird sound. He looks out his bedroom window and sees a car floating outside. In it are Ron, Fred, and George Weasley. The Weasleys pull the bars off the window with their car. This wakes up the Dursley. Uncle Vernon grabs Harry's leg, but he falls down into the bushes below as the car takes off. Don't worry, he's fine. But who cares about Vernon anyway? As they fly off into the night sky, Ron turns to Harry and wishes him a happy birthday. It's July the 31st. Happy birthday, Harry! The car lands at the Weasley house. The boys go inside and see all kinds of magical things happening around them. Harry loves all of it. Just then, Mrs. Weasley comes downstairs. She is not happy that her 3 sons went out last night and flew a car without telling her. Luckily, she doesn't blame Harry. At breakfast, Ron's little sister Ginny comes down, but she panics a little when she sees Harry. Ron says she's been talking about her favorite wizard boy all summer. Thanks, Ron. Mr. Weasley comes home from a long night at work. Then Errol, the Weasley's owl, arrives with a post. It's letters from Hogwarts with a list of school supplies. Yes, it's time to go shopping in Diagon Alley. But how to get to Diagon Alley? By Floo powder, of course. Mrs. Weasley tells Ron to go first to show how it's done. Ron grabs a handful of powder, throws it into the fireplace, and says Diagon Alley. Green flames come up, and he disappears. Scary. But of course, Harry gets all nervous and says it's too fast. He ends up in some weird, spooky shop. There, he hides in an Iron Maiden, the one without spikes inside, and sees Draco, a rich, spoiled student at Hogwarts, going into the shop with his dad, Lucius Malfoy. Lucius selling his bad stuff like poison to hide them. When they leave, Harry runs out the shop and sees all kinds of bad people in the alley. Luckily, he meets Hagrid, who warns him against being there. Hey, if this place is so bad, what was Hagrid doing there? there. After that, he meets Hermione and the Weasley family again inside a bookstore. Flourish and blots. People, especially lady witches, are going crazy because Gilderoy Lockhart, a famous wizard and author writing about the great things he did, is signing books inside. Lockhart notices Harry waiting in line. He calls Harry over for a photo op and also gives Harry his entire collected works for free. As the kids are leaving the bookstore, Draco Malfoy swoops in and insults Harry. Draco thinks that Harry must love all this attention. Yes, it's super fun being famous because you're an orphan. Just then, a taller, blonder version of Draco appears. It's Draco's dad, Lucius. Mr. Malfoy then goes on to admire Harry's scar, and Voldemort calls the Weasley poor by picking up their second-hand schoolbooks and insult Hermione for having Muggle parents. Mr. Weasley walks up and the adults secretly insult each other. The Weasley family and Harry are rushing to the train to Hogwarts. Everyone goes through the wall to platform 9 3/4 except for Ron and Harry. They just crashed into it. How are they going to get to Hogwarts? Well, they do have that flying car, so Harry and Ron fire up the noisy old car and fly to Hogwarts. As they make their way over the countryside, they almost get run over by the train when they fly too low near the tracks, and Harry almost falls out of the car when his door opens. Other than being so close to dying a couple of times, it's a nice trip. Finally, at Hogwarts, they just need to land, but the car goes out of control. Ron tries to use his wand, but it snaps. They crash right into the branches of a huge tree. It's the Whomping Willow. Suddenly, the trees start hitting the car. That explains its name. The car falls to the ground and Ron drives it away from the tree before it can bash them one last time. The flying car then throws Ron and Harry out along with their luggage and rides into the Forbidden Forest. Ron's parents are not going to be happy about this. Harry thinks this whole thing is wrong. Someone really doesn't want him at Hogwarts. Well, soon they may not be at Hogwarts because their flying car was seen by Muggles, says the caretaker Argus Filch. It is against the wizarding law. The boys meet Professor Snape, who says they're in so much trouble and they can be expelled. However, Professor McGonagall decides that detention and a strongly worded letter home will do as punishment. We think Professor Snape was hoping they'll be boiled in oil or something. In a greenhouse, Professor Sprout is showing the second years how to repot baby mandrakes. Their cries may be deadly, but their venom can revive someone who's been petrified. Later, Ron is trying to fix his wand with tapes, but it's hopeless. Just then, he gets a letter. It's red. Everyone starts saying it's a howler. When Ron opens it, the letter takes the shape of a mouth and starts yelling at him in Mrs. Weasley's voice about how wrong he was to take the car and fly off to school. Guess that letter home from Professor McGonagall was pretty effective. On the first day of Defense Against the Dark Arts, Gilderoy Lockhart introduces himself as their new teacher. He goes into all his fancy titles and starts to talk about his adventures fighting all sorts of monsters and evil wizards before showing them a cage of Cornus pixies. The students aren't impressed, so Lockhart releases them into the room. Most of the students manage to escape the room. Lockhart tries to cast a spell with his wand, which the pixies snatch away. He quickly backs out of the classroom and tells Harry, Ron and Hermione to get the rest of the pixies into their cages. Hermione casts a quick spell to immobilize all the pixies. The Gryffindor Quidditch team is getting ready to practice when the Slytherin Quidditch team walks up. Seems that the Slytherin Quidditch team needs to train their new seeker, Draco Malfoy. Oh, and all of them also have new brooms, Nimbus 2001s, all bought for them by Lucius Malfoy. Guess you have to buy your way onto the team, Hermione tells Draco.
No one asked for your opinion, you filthy little mudblood,
Draco replies. Ron is not having it, so he pulls out his broken wand and tries to curse Draco, but the spell hit back at him and he starts coughing up slugs. They take Ron to Hagrid's hut and explain what happened. Apparently, mudblood is like the wizard insult for those who have Muggle parents. Wizards like Malfoy see themselves as pure blood, but they see witches like Hermione with non-magical parents as folks with dirty blood, polluting the magical community. Hagrid tells Hermione it's all garbage and that Hermione is way better at magic than any of them. Later, Harry finally has his detention with Professor Lockhart. Harry is helping answer Lockhart's fan letters when he hears some voices. Spooky. He mentioned this to Lockhart, who is scared and ends the detention. We thought this guy had all kinds of experience with epic monster fighting adventures. On the way back, Harry hears the voices again. He follows them until he runs into Ron and Hermione. Of course, they didn't hear the voices either. He runs off after the voices again, and the three come to a hallway that's flooded with water. There, they see spiders crawling out a window and notice a message written in blood on the wall. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. But that's not all. Hanging on the wall from her tail is Mr. Filch's cat, Mrs. Norris. Suddenly, every single Hogwarts student walk into the hallway thinks Harry did all of it. Mr. Filch is mad. Dumbledore calms the situation and sends the crowd away. Mrs. Norris isn't dead. She's just been petrified. She can be cured with the mantrix in Professor Sprout's greenhouse. How lucky we've just learned that. But Harry doesn't tell any teachers of the voices he heard. In Transfiguration class with Professor McGonagall, the second years are changing animals into water goblets when Hermione asked Professor McGonagall if she'll tell the class about the Chamber of Secrets. Well, when Hogwarts was founded over 1,000 years ago, there were 4 founders: Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin. 3 of these guys got along fine, but one of them didn't. Salazar Slytherin wanted to teach only students who came from pure-blood families, so he left Hogwarts. But according to legend, he built a secret chamber before he left. His plan was for his heir to come back later and open the chamber and unleash the terrible thing within on any student with non-magical blood. Spooky. Professor McGonagall tells her students that the castle has been thoroughly searched and no one has ever found this hidden room. So, of course, it doesn't exist. But if you have to guess, what would be in the chamber? Hermione asks. If it exists, a knuckly monster, of course. Something only the heir of Slytherin could control, Professor McGonagall explains. Lovely. After class, Harry, Ron, and Hermione discuss if the Chamber of Secrets is real and is being opened, that means the heir of Slytherin must be at Hogwarts. Ron suspects Malfoy. After all, he's a pureblood and he hates Muggleborns, right? Hermione doesn't think so because it's too big for Draco. Maybe they could ask Malfoy's friends, Crabbe and Goyle, Ron says. Then Hermione's got a plan. Hermione does what she does best and heads for the library. She finds the recipe for Polyjuice potion. It will take a month to brew, but it will allow them to disguise themselves as Crabbe and Goyle and get information out of Malfoy. Later, Gryffindor and Slytherins are battling it out when in the middle of the match, a bludger goes crazy and starts chasing Harry. Ron tries to catch a spell to help Harry, but Hermione stops him. Ron's wand is too damaged. Maybe one of the adults want to get in and save Harry from being bashed to death by a bludger. That doesn't happen either. Draco Malfoy thinks the fact that Harry could die or be really hurt is very funny and stopped to tell him so. As a result, he doesn't notice the snitch flying just behind his shoulder. Harry rushes after the snitch and he and Draco have a little broom race with a bludger following them. It finally ends when Draco is knocked off his broom. Harry gets his right arm broken by the bludger but catches the snitch with his left arm. Gryffindor wins! Everyone rushes over to Harry and Hermione casts a spell to blow up the attacking bludger. This girl can do anything. Of course, Harry's arm is still broken, but it's cool because Professor Lockhart has got this. He casts a spell that makes all the bones in Harry's arm disappear. Not exactly the result he was looking for, but close. Does this guy ever know what he's doing? In the hospital wing, Madame Pomfrey lets Harry know it's bad luck his bones have disappeared because growing them back will be painful. Great. That night, Harry hears the voices in the walls again. He looks up and sees Dobby standing on his bed. Dobby still cannot believe Harry is at Hogwarts. Dobby thought stopping Harry at the station and a bludger would be enough to keep Harry away. Oh, that filthy little elf did everything. He says he feels bad about getting Harry into trouble and trying to hurt him. He actually ironed his hand to punish himself. Dobby also explained that he wears rags because he can't have any real clothes. In fact, the only way he can ever be freed is if his masters present him with clothes. Harry is not really feeling Dobby right now, but Dobby tells him that his only goal is to keep Harry safe, and that means Harry needs to leave Hogwarts now, that history is about to repeat itself. That sounds scary. But Dobby hears noises. Not caring to explain, he just disappears. Then, in come the teachers carrying a student. It's Colin Creevey with his camera and he's been petrified. Harry overhears Dumbledore telling the group that Hogwarts is no longer safe because the Chamber of Secrets has been opened again. Of course, Harry has to tell Ron and Hermione all the hospital wing gossip. Ron still thinks that Draco is the heir of Slytherin. Maybe Lucius Malfoy also opened the Chamber of Secrets Hogwarts when he was at school and he taught Draco how to do it. We'll know when the polyjuice is done, Hermione tells him. Why are we brewing this potion in the middle of the day in the girls' bathroom? Ron asks Hermione. Because of Moaning Myrtle. She's the ghost that haunts this bathroom. No one goes in this bathroom because she's so annoying. They definitely won't get caught. Hermione knows all the tricks. Meanwhile, Professor Lockhart has decided to start a student dueling club. He's got Professor Snape to help him. After Snape knocks Lockhart back during a sample duel with a simple disarming spell, Lockhart suggests some students team up. That's how we get Harry versus Draco. Of course, Draco doesn't follow the rules and knocks Harry down with a spell. Harry fires back and knocks Draco down with his own spell. Professor Snape doesn't seem to mind, but Professor Lockhart can sense things are getting out of control, but he can't do anything to stop it. This guy is useless at magic. For his next spell, Draco casts a snake out of his wand. Professor Snape says he'll get rid of it, but before he can act, Lockhart steps forward and casts another useless spell that tosses the snake in the air, making it mad. When it lands back down on the ground, Harry steps forward and starts talking to the snake in a strange language. The snake turns and looks like it might attack a student named Justin. Everyone is freaked out. Then Professor Snape burns the snake up with a spell. After the dueling club, Ron and Hermione ask Harry why he didn't tell them he was a Parselmouth. In other words, he can talk to snakes. Harry didn't think it was important. Besides, he was just telling the snake not to attack Justin. Probably many magical people can do that. Nope, unless you count Salazar Slytherin. Well, it's not like Harry could be related to Slytherin, right? Maybe, says Hermione. He lived 1,000 years ago. Who knows? Everyone is talking about how Harry is totally weird and can talk to snakes, so he decides to leave the study hall. Outside, in the corridor, he hears the voices again and then comes across the ghost of nearly headless Nick and a petrified Justin. This doesn't do anything good for him at all. Professor McGonagall brings Harry to Dumbledore's office. Inside, he has a conversation with a sorting hat. The hat mentions that Harry would have done well in Slytherin, which makes Harry a bit uncomfortable. Harry also notices Dumbledore's pet bird, who happens to burst into flame right before Dumbledore walks into the office. No worries, because Fawkes is a phoenix. He must burst into flame and then be reborn from ashes. Dumbledore also says that phoenixes can carry really heavy load and have healing tears, information that will probably be useful later on. Just then, Hagrid rushes into Dumbledore's office and tells Dumbledore that Harry didn't do anything to Headless Nick and Justin, which Dumbledore already knows. He just called Harry to his office to see if Harry wanted to tell him anything. Anything at all? No, Harry says. Okay, people are being hurt, but make sure you keep all your secrets, Harry. It's Christmas at Hogwarts, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione are ready to carry out their Polyjuice potion plan. Harry and Ron just need some hair from Crabbe and Goyle's head. Hermione's got this one figured out too. Ron and Harry float some cupcakes in the hall, and Crabbe and Goyle grab them and start eating. Hermione's added sleeping potion to the treats, so they pass out. Back in the girls' bathroom, they add the hair to their potions. Hermione's taken some from some ropes, and they drink and start to transform. Harry successfully turns into Goyle, and Ron is Crabbe, but Hermione won't come out of the bathroom stall. She tells the boys to go ahead without her. They only have an hour before they change back. Harry and Ron are stopped by Percy Weasley, who want to know why they're wandering the halls. Luckily, Draco Malfoy comes along to rescue them and lead them down to the Slytherin common room. Inside the room, Malfoy manages to insult the Weasley and Dumbledore and Harry and Ron forget that they're supposed to be going along with Draco's evil talking. Draco also reveals that he doesn't know who the heir of Slytherin is, but his father told him that the Chamber of Secret was opened 50 years ago. Last time it happened, a student was expelled and a mudblood ended up dead. Draco's hoping this time it will be Hermione Granger. Ron attacks Draco, but Harry stops him. He also notices that a potion is wearing off and they are changing back to their normal selves. Harry and Ron run out of the common room and back to the girls' bathroom. Hermione is still in the store when it turns out she's been turned into a cat. Looks like she picked up some cat hair. So Hermione has to spend a few days in the hospital wing. Harry and Ron are walking through the halls when they notice that there's water everywhere. Looks like Moaning Myrtle flooded the girls' bathroom. Inside the bathroom, they find Myrtle crying. She tells them that someone threw a book at her. Harry picks up the wet book and dries it out. That evening, he takes a look at it. It's a blank diary with Tom Marvolo Riddle written on the back cover. Harry decides to write in the diary and notices that the ink disappears. He makes a note introducing himself as Harry Potter. Words on the page appear that say the person writing back is named Tom Riddle. Okay, Harry asks if Tom knows anything anything about the Chamber of Secrets? Yup. Harry would like to know more, and Tom offers to show him. The book says that it all started 50 years ago. Suddenly, the book glows with a bright light and Harry gets sucked inside. Harry is transported into a scene in Hogwarts Castle. There, he sees a young boy watching as another student being taken down the stairs on a stretcher. She's dead. Dumbledore calls to the boy from the top of the stairs. This is Tom Riddle, and Harry is watching his memory from 50 years ago. Tom asks Dumbledore if they're really going to close the school. Tom doesn't have a place to go home, so he's concerned. What if the person responsible for that girl's death was caught? Then no one would have to head home. This feels wrong, so Dumbledore asks Tom if there's anything he'd like to say. No, Tom tells him. Harry follows Tom as he heads off down the hall. Tom opens the door to reveal a young Hagrid in a room with a box. Tom tells Hagrid he's going to have to turn him in. The thing in the box is going to have to die. Hagrid says that his pet Aragog didn't kill anyone, but Tom is not having it. He blasts open the box and a huge spider escapes and rushes out the door and down the hall. Tom stops Hagrid from going after the spider. He tells Hagrid that he'll be expelled for this. Harry is out of the diary in a flash of light to ponder everything he's seen. Naturally, Harry tells Ron and Hermione what he saw in the diary. Ron's not so sure about his Tom Riddle character, but Harry thinks Tom knew what he was doing. If Hagrid's monster had killed someone, then it had to be stopped. Maybe they should just go talk to Hagrid. Just then, Hagrid comes up behind them, but of course they can't just ask their friend whether he killed one of his classmates 50 years ago. Right after this, Harry finds out his part of the room has been messed up and Tom's Riddle's diary had been stolen. Later, Harry's getting ready for Quidditch when Professor McGonagall tells Harry and Ron that Hermione has been petrified. She was found by the library with a mirror in her hand. What was that girl up to this time? In the Gryffindor common room, Professor McGonagall explains some new school rules to keep the students safe and tell the students that Hogwarts will probably be closed down if these attacks don't stop. History is really repeating itself. Harry decides their situation is getting desperate. He and Ron take the invisibility cloak and head out to talk to Hagrid to find out what he knows about the Chamber of Secrets. Hagrid finds Harry and Ron at his door and invites them in. He's clearly nervous and expecting someone not so friendly. Finally, Harry asks if Hagrid knows who's opened the Chamber of Secrets. Before Hagrid can answer, there's a knock at the door and the boys throw on the invisibility cloak again. Dumbledore is at the door along with Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic. Fudge looks upset, but he has to do something about these attacks. He wants to take Hagrid. Hagrid, of course, says that he didn't do anything, but Fudge says Hagrid has a record, so that just looks bad for him. Hagrid is going to Azkaban, the worst wizard prison. Just then, they get another visitor, Lucius Malfoy. He got some news for Dumbledore. It seems that Hogwarts governors want Dumbledore to step down as headmaster. With all these attacks, Dumbledore really isn't doing a great job, is he? But Dumbledore's like, it's cool, I'll go. Just know that if you're at Hogwarts and you need help, all you have to do is ask. Then he looks right at Ron and Harry hiding under the invisibility cloak. Weird. When Hagrid heads out with the group, he also announces if anyone is looking for some clues, they should follow the spiders. Sounds spooky. After all the adults leave, Harry and Ron realize that Hogwarts is going to be a pretty messed up place without Dumbledore. Then Harry sees a bunch of spiders crawling out of Hagrid's window, and he knows what they have to do next. So Harry and Ron head out of Hagrid's hut and follow the spiders, which are crawling towards the Forbidden Forest. The boys walk until they reach a creepy hollow covered in cobwebs. Ron doesn't think going in is the best idea, but Harry's very determined, so they head inside. In the hollow, they hear a voice and a giant spider step out to talk to them. Harry knows him as a much older Aragog. Harry explains that Hagrid's in trouble and asks what Aragog knows about the Chamber of Secrets. Aragog tells them that Hagrid didn't open the chamber way back then. That means Aragog isn't a monster from the chamber either. That thing is a creature that spiders fear more than anything. Aragog didn't say exactly what it is though. After that girl was found dead in the bathroom at Hogwarts, Hagrid's brought Aragog to the forest. He's been living there ever since. Well, that was a lot of useful information. Guess talking to this hideously frightening spider actually turned out to be a great idea, right? Not exactly. As Harry and Ron chat with Aragog, other rather large spiders begin to surround them. Harry thanks Aragog and says it's time for them to be going. No, Aragog tells them his children are pretty hungry and you boys look really juicy and delicious. The spider closes in on Harry and Ron, who try to find a way to escape. It's not looking good. Just then, the old flying car drives into the hollow, knocking the spiders left and right. The two boys jump into the car and drives off. Of course, the spider followed them through the forest, but Ron manages to get the car to fly. Harry and Ron fly up and out the forest and land outside Hagrid's hut again. Later, Harry and Ron visit a still petrified Hermione in hospital and notice that she happens to have a crumbled piece of paper in her hand. The paper describes a monster called a basilisk. Harry guesses that this is the creature in the Chamber of Secrets. It's a type of snakes, so that explains why only Harry can hear it. Spiders hate it and it kills people by looking them in the eye. Yeah, but no one is dead. Why? Harry guesses that because no one looked a basilisk right in the eyes. Mrs. Norris must have seen it through the reflection in the water on the floor. Colin saw it through his camera lens. Justin saw it through the ghost of Sir Nicholas. And Hermione saw it in a mirror. Genius! But how's the snake getting around the castle? Hermione's luckily left a little note about that on the paper in her hand. It's been going through the pipes. Then Harry thinks of the dead girl in the bathroom from 50 years ago. Could that be Moaning Myrtle? Just then, Ron and Harry hear Professor McGonagall announcing that all students should head to their dorms. Naturally, Harry and Ron go towards the place that teachers are gathering. Turns out, a student has been taken by the monster. It's Ginny Weasley, and someone has written a message in blood on the wall. Her skeleton will lie in a chamber forever. Harry and Ron heard Professor Lockhart say that he was going to try and get into the Chamber of Secrets to defeat the monster and save Ginny. So they run into his office to give him the information. Turns out, that's not exactly what Lockhart is up to. He's packing to leave. Lockhart finally admits that he isn't the brave and daring wizard he'd made himself out to be. He's a fraud. He tells Harry and Ron that he's pretty good at erasing memories though, and that's exactly what he's going to do to them. But Harry and Ron were able to stop them. Wow! Lockhart really is a rubbish wizard. So Harry and Ron take Lockhart and lead him down to girls' bathroom. There they ask Moaning Myrtle how she died. Myrtle explained that she was in the bathroom stall crying when she heard a boy outside speaking a strange language. When she came out, all she saw was a pair of yellow eyes looking over by one of the sink, and then she was dead, just like that. Harry looks at the sink and sees a little snake on it. He speaks in Parseltongue and the sink pulls back, showing a hole in the floor. The boys push Lockhart down into the hole and then jumped in after him. The boys land on bones. They make Lockhart go ahead and notice a huge snake skin. Lockhart faints. Nope, he only pretends to faint. Lockhart grabs Ron's wand and tries to erase Harry's memory, but the spell backfires. The blast from the spell knocks a bunch of rocks down and separates Harry from Ron and Lockhart. Harry goes ahead towards the Chamber of Secrets, but Ron stays behind with Lockhart, who can't remember who he is or where he is. Good. Harry comes to a door with metal snakes on it and opens it using Parseltongue. That skill sure is handy. Then he crawls down into a huge room. Hey, it's the Chamber of Secrets we've been hearing so much about. At the end of the chamber is Ginny's body. Harry runs towards her, hoping she's not dead. Just then, a young man steps out of the shadow. It's Tom Riddle. Funny seeing him here. He tells Harry that Ginny is alive. Harry wants Tom's help to save Ginny, but Tom's is acting a little weird. He picks up Harry's wand and won't give it back. Then he tells Harry that he's feeding off Ginny to grow stronger. What? Oh yes, Tom explained. See, it was Ginny who opened the Chamber of Secrets and set the basilisk on everyone and wrote those messages in blood. Sure, she only did it because Tom told her to. That's why Ginny tried to throw away the diary in the girls' bathroom. Tom was actually pretty surprised when Harry found it. He had really been looking forward to meeting Harry, so he showed Harry his memory of the time he framed Hagrid for opening the Chamber of Secrets. Harry is pretty annoyed by this. Tom is a huge liar. Yeah, whatever. Tom tells Harry only Dumbledore thought that Hagrid didn't do it, but Tom knew he couldn't risk opening the chamber again at school, so he left behind a diary with a memory of his 16-year-old self inside it. He knew that one day he would finish the work that Salazar Slytherin started. Well, Harry tells him, your plan is an epic fail. You didn't kill anyone, you just petrified them. Seriously? Tom replies, I don't even care about killing mudbloods anymore. I'm more worried about killing you, Harry. And then Tom goes in for the big reveal. reveal. He writes his name in the air with Harry's wand, Tom Marvolo Riddle, and then rearranges the letter to spell the phrase, I am Lord Voldemort. Tom Riddle is the heir of Slytherin. He is Voldemort. It all makes sense now. Tom is pretty pleased with himself, but he's just a memory, and he's achieving all his goals. He's even driven Dumbledore out. Nope, says Harry. Dumbledore will always be here if people are loyal to him. Just then, Fawkes the Phoenix flies into the chamber and tosses a sorting hat to Harry. Wow, a hat! Tom must be really scared. Tom decides it's time to call the Basilisk. He also reminds Harry that Parseltongue isn't going to help him since the Basilisk only obey the heir of Slytherin. The Basilisk rushes after Harry. He can't look it in the eyes if he wants to live, so that's a problem, and Harry trips as he's running away. Luckily, Fawkes swoops in and pecks out the eyes of the Basilisk. Now the snake is blind, though it still has lots of really sharp teeth. The Basilisk follows Harry into some tunnels, but he escapes when he tricks the blind snake into following the sound of a rock. Back in the chamber, Ginny is nearly dead, and Tom, or Lord Voldemort, is about to be reborn. What's also bad is that the Basilisk is back. It pops its head up out of the pool around the Chamber of Secret and attacks Harry again. Harry glances down and notices that a sword is inside the sorting hat. Nice. Harry grabs it and uses it to swipe at the snake. He climbs to higher ground and keeps swinging the sword at the snake. Finally, the snake lunges at Harry and he stabs the Basilisk in its head and kills it. A monster of legends, killed by a 12-year-old. But Harry also gets a basilisk fang in his arm. This doesn't look good. Basilisk venom kills. At this point, Harry is not feeling so great. He's pulled the basilisk fang out of his arm, but the venom is working fast. He's dying. Tom Riddle is pretty happy about this. Sure, his snake is dead, but his plan is coming together. Just then, Harry grabs the diary out of Ginny's hand and stabs it with the basilisk fang. Tom screams. Harry keeps stabbing, and blood spurts out of the diary until Tom Riddle is totally gone. Then Ginny wakes up and sees that Harry is hurt. Oh no! Fawkes flies over and sheds a few tears for Harry, tears that have healing power. See, you thought Dumbledore was just dropping meaningless information earlier in this movie. Harry doesn't die, Ginny doesn't die, and they all fly up and out of the Chamber of Secrets. Dumbledore tells Ron and Harry that they broke the rules and he should expel them. Instead, he'll give them special awards for service to the school. That's right, they did find the Chamber of Secrets and kill a basilisk. Dumbledore sends Ron away to free Hagrid from Azkaban, while he stays and talks to Harry. Dumbledore tells him that he must have been loyal to the professor in the chamber, which is why Fawkes came to save him. Dumbledore also explained why Harry has noticed Voldemort and himself are quite similar. Dumbledore thinks that Voldemort might have accidentally transferred some of his powers to Harry the night he tried to kill him. That explains why Harry can speak Parseltongue. Well, maybe that means Harry belongs in Slytherin after all. Nope, Dumbledore tells him the Sorting Hat put Harry in Gryffindor because he asked it to. Harry made a choice, and that's what's most important, the choice a person makes. Besides, that sword Harry pulled out of the Sorting Hat belonged to Godric Gryffindor, so that means Harry really belongs to Gryffindor. As Harry and Dumbledore are having their little chat, Lucius Malfoy walks in the office with, surprise, Dopey! Whoa, Dopey is the Malfoy's house elf. Lucius is angry because Dumbledore is back. Yep, once Ginny had been taken into the Chamber of Secrets, the Hogwarts governor thought again about the headmaster. But Dumbledore has figured out who opened the chamber, right? Lucius wants to know. Yes, it was Voldemort, but he had help in the form of this diary. Lucius looks uncomfortable. It would be a shame if any of Voldemort's school stuff ended up at Hogwarts again. The person who tried to do that would be in a whole mess. Dumbledore warns Lucius. As Lucius leaves, he kicks Dobby, and Harry has an idea. He follows Mr. Malfoy out of Dumbledore's office with a diary and hands it over to him. Harry tells Mr. Malfoy that he knows that the diary actually wound up with Ginny Weasley because Mr. Malfoy slipped it into her cauldron the day they met while stopping at Diagon Alley. This is obviously what exactly happened, but Lucius admits nothing. He hands the book to Dobby and makes some snide comments instead. Then Harry tells Dobby to look inside the book. When the house elf opens the book, there's a sock inside. Dobby's master has presented him with clothes. He's free now. Yay! This is kind of the last straw for Lucius. Not only did every one of his evil plans fail, but now he has no servant because of Harry. Lucius pulls out his wand to curse Harry, but Dobby steps in the way to defend the boy. Take that, Malfoy! And finally, at the end of the year feast, Hermione walks in and sees Ron and Harry. They run to each other. She and Harry hug. She and Ron share an awkward handshake. They like each other. Dumbledore announces that everyone has been successfully healed with the help of the mandrakes. Then he mentions that exams have been cancelled due to the recent child kidnapping and monster slaying. Everyone cheers. Just then, Hagrid comes through the door of the Great Hall. He thanks our three heroes for freeing him from Azkaban, proving after the last 50 years that he was innocent. Harry and Hagrid hug. Dumbledore starts to clap. Then everyone claps. Heck, even the Slytherins. Malfoy has to remind Crabbe and Goyle that they don't clap for good things like this. Everyone is happy, everything is magical, and another year at Hogwarts is done. That's the end of film story in simple English for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I'm Kieran Nguyen. Thank you for watching and see you.